Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Supercharge Your Infrastructure and Your Balance Sheet. This special webinar event is presented in partnership with Pure Storage. Thanks so much for joining us on this Actual Tech Media event. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as your moderator. As always, with our Actual Tech Media events, we want these to be educational, and we encourage your questions in the questions pane. In fact, we have a best question prize to help further encourage those questions, if you will. I'll talk more about that here in just a moment. Many of you have already found the questions box there, and we appreciate your hello and good morning messages from across the United States and around the world. We also want your technical questions on today's topic, so keep those questions coming. Experts from Pure Storage are standing by to respond. I also want to call your attention to the Handouts tab. It's there that you'll find a number of resources on today's topic for additional information. At the end of the webinar, I'll be announcing the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card door prize. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms can be found right there in the Handouts tab. And then, as I mentioned, we have our best question prize as well for an additional gift card, a $50 Amazon gift card. Of course, you have to ask a question to be entered into that drawing. The prize winner will be selected and contacted after the event. All prize winners have to meet the Actual Tech Media prize policy. And with that, it's now time to introduce you to today's expert presenters. Welcome, Mr. Andrew Miller, Principal Systems Engineer, Eugene McGrath, Field Solutions Architect, Brian Farrar, Senior Solutions Marketing Manager, and Carlo Grisolia, Sales Development Representative, all at Pure Storage. It's great to have everyone on for this discussion. Take it away.
I appreciate it, and thank you to our panelists today. Today's topic for the webinar, as Carol mentioned, is Supercharge Your Infrastructure and Your Balance Sheet. And this is really an exciting one for us because we have a platform to talk about today that was designed from the ground up, not only to meet your infrastructure technology needs, but also to meet your OpEx versus CapEx needs. And those are some of the things we're going to talk about today. So on that note, I'm going to kick it off with Eugene. And Eugene, let me ask you the first question here. And that is, Pure and Cisco just together announced a couple of major new developments around our hybrid cloud infrastructure, which we call FlashStack. Can you give us a little overview about those announcements and some of the significance for our customers?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. So one of the great things about FlashStack is that now more than ever, we're seeing innovation in a number of different areas. So if we look at FlashStack historically, it's really addressed three major areas. It's about lowering your SLAs to be able to meet business needs. It's about being able to run any workload in hours instead of weeks, right? That was a big transformation for FlashStack. And when we look at other infrastructures that would take weeks, a month to get up and running, we're able to do this in a matter of days or less, right? Or hours. And then the third piece that really transformed the industry was around forklift upgrades, not having to do these forklift upgrades. I don't have to take downtime for an entire weekend. Andrew, I know you know this well, like taking entire weekends to upgrade the code on this particular system. And there's lots of downtime, and business today doesn't run that way. We need 24/7, right?
That was when I used to get paid time and a half, to be very clear, over the weekends. But I'm betting most people are willing to give that up at this point.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you're sweating it. You're sweating it the entire time. Will we be done in time? Right. And so those are some of the things that really changed the way that the landscape of technology is today, because FlashStack really offers these three things, which is it's really simple to manage, it's really simple to deploy, and really simple to grow and expand, right? And that leads into that second thing of more flexibility. You have the flexibility to add what you need when you need it, as well as being able to add more speed, whether it's on the storage side, or maybe you need more network ports, right? Or maybe you need more compute, being able to do those in a granular fashion without having to add a whole nother rack of gear, right? Every single time. And that's some of the main points of FlashStack that make it this modern infrastructure. But there were some announcements that recently took place with Cisco, and one of them is around this now new X platform. And so what we've done, and our commitment to our customers, is that we've already started the process and progress along this route to invent this FlashStack.next, right? This next generation of FlashStack that is the CVDs are backwards compatible, but it's more important is, what about those customers who have FlashStack today and they're upgrading to X? Well, the answer is that we've actually already released our CVD for this. And I won't go into too much detail about Intersight, but it's second to none when it comes to managing the entire solution. And there's a lot of great things there. And we'll talk more about that. But my point here is that we've already created these CVDs and white papers so that customers who are transitioning from older FlashStacks to new, you still realize that value of this continuous infrastructure and being able to upgrade when you need and giving you guidance on the new platform. So there's a lot of really exciting things about X series. If you haven't seen it, I definitely encourage you to take a look. It's definitely a game changer for Cisco and for the industry as a whole, and the performance is incredible. So definitely take a look at the new FlashStack as well as the Cisco X series. But we also made another change. So we've taken technology really, really far in the FlashStack world when it comes to innovation and technology. But what if we could help our customers do some other things that are really important to them, right? One of the things that is really prevalent today is hybrid cloud, right? It's this idea of just paying a bill every month and it grows as you need. You can upgrade as you need and so forth. And also maybe more managed, like a managed service, right? And so the three things that customers are looking for is this cloud experience, right? You pick up the phone, you call somebody when you need it, you have guidance, you have this economics of, I know if I add another compute node, it should cost me this. Maybe it's better in FlashStack as a service versus like AWS, where you might get a surprise bill at the end of the month, right? And as well as having these operations that allow you to really grow and operate it in a cloud-like fashion. And then the three other benefits of it are just how to simplifying this infrastructure as well as aligning costs to the application. So as you deploy new applications, I know it costs X amount to add this new server to FlashStack as a service. And so really what I'm doing here is introducing FlashStack as a service, which is our partnership with Cisco, which allows you not only a flexible purchase so that OpEx friendly purchases, but also CVDs to match CVDs with next gen management platforms like Intersight. But it actually takes you way beyond that. It's not just an OpEx model, and I definitely encourage everyone to look at FlashStack as a service as a whole new product line instead of a specific business model, because it offers customers the entire life cycle, and that's the key thing. We're not just offering OpEx friendly billing; we're offering that customer onboarding, that really white glove experience by being able to look at a usage dashboard, see what you're using, as well as having the upgrades run by the FlashStack team and all the validation that goes with this. So it's more than just an OpEx model. It's really an entire lifecycle managed solution for customers. And I think it's a real game changer. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Brian.
It would help if I unmuted, I guess. Thank you, Eugene. I appreciate what a great update. And this is a really exciting time for us. For the first time ever, we have a hybrid cloud infrastructure solution that was designed from the ground up to support not only an easy transition to a multi-cloud environment, but also to support any economic model, traditional or flexible, that you wish to implement. So what a great explanation. With that, I want to ask Carlo the next question, and that is, Eugene mentioned one of the really exciting aspects of this, and that was Intersight. He was kind enough not to steal your thunder, Carlo, because Intersight to me is really the key to unlocking the benefits of this new generation of FlashStack. So with that, Carlo, I'm going to ask you to maybe elaborate a little bit about Intersight and what that does for us in this environment.
Yeah, hello everybody from boiling Italy, basically. So thanks a lot for having me here. And yes, with pleasure, I'll expand on the benefits of the Intersight, which is what ultimately gives IT managers, IT administrators, a management and configuration tool that embraces the infrastructure as a whole, that in fact ultimately allows the holistic approach the FlashStack proposes, as we learned from Eugene. Intersight by Cisco is a single integrated control panel, a cloud-based management product, similar to our Pure One, for instance, that opens to real-time operational and financial management for both FlashStack and FlashStack as a service. Very quickly, Intersight is a single integrated management solution for the entire stack on premises and in the cloud for data mobility with improved visibility, control, and responsiveness. So now let's just consider this dual nature of the Intersight. Why did we say that it's an improved operational management tool? So let me take a step back so we can look at the FlashStack from a prospect or customer's perspective, which is basically my actual line of business. Well, my attention is fully directed to customers or prospective customers specifically. So the improved operational management is permitted by what Eugene has just described. And if we can move ahead with the slides, Andrew, that would be amazing. Thanks very much. So what we look at when we look at various options available on premises, they've all had various trade-offs in the last 15, 20 years. They've each been optimized for different things, like flexibility or performance or resiliency, perhaps. Whilst the nature of the FlashStack itself, and can I actually have the next slide, Andrew, please? That is actually a slide that I like to repropose every chance I get. So the FlashStack is basically an offer of a mix of all this concept. Main advantages of FlashStack are the ease of management and configuration of a hyper-converged environment, plus a unique point of support for all three elements, again, storage, compute, and networking, the flexibility at scale that a converged environment would offer, and it provides with blueprints, which are templates, which is what we call CVDs, standing for Cisco Validated Design, each of which dedicated to a specific use case. There is an always growing list of so far 38 CVDs, and that shows how much customers' needs are at the center of this change that the FlashStack offers. The chance for a truly harmonious, if you like, IT infrastructure management. And it is ultimately Intersight, that's the very exciting part, what makes a FlashStack a software-based infrastructure, and what automates all actions that IT administrators, although Andrew is kind of missing that bit, are used to or still do manually. So I like to invite all prospective customers to come and visit us, so to discover how Intersight can help them meeting their needs or solving their management related issues, or how can facilitate the making of their actual visions. In fact, we are Pure and Cisco won the attention of innovators, because it is with innovators that we show our full potentials. This is the truth. So innovators among the audience, reach out and describe your vision to us. We want to partner with you. Cisco and us at Pure, we want to partner with you. In fact, actually, Brian, allow me just to conclude this little promotional message since I started it. Everyone in the audience, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm sure the rest of the panelists will be happy to also answer too. But my inbox is always available through the LinkedIn or via any other channel you'll easily find, actually. Now, back to the Intersight. Can we go to the next slide, Andrew, please?
This one, I think?
Yeah. Yes, exactly, precisely. Thank you very much. So the main point here is that the IT workforce can enjoy the automation of all the actions that appear in the slide and monitoring the effects, the results of this general, again, harmonious automation through one very interface. The industry has long hyped the concept of a single pane of glass managing the entire infrastructure, but is FlashStack who's usually exclusively delivering on that promise. The orchestration, the harmony, as we kind of liken to hear now, the FlashStack opens to is permitted by the Intersight that delivers capabilities and new features around APIs. Delivery and implementation that happens without the customers ever getting involved at all. So all tasks that an IT administrator has assigned for the management and configuration of our arrays, perhaps volume, snapshot, protocol conversion, are exposed. And this is what increases connectivity and elevates the FlashStack to a status of software-defined architecture. There is a robust set of APIs offered for additional customization. Again, customers' needs are always at the core of Pure and Cisco's attention. One example is the integration with AppDynamics, perhaps. So for best-in-class application performance management, so that now monitoring your mission-critical workloads, such as SAP, Oracle, or SQL, can be done through the same interface. Andrew, can we just please move to the next slide? Thank you very much. So we now covered the operational advantages of Intersight. Let's dive into the financial advantages, which are intuitively consequential to the operational advantages and of great impact for the workforce, first of all, and therefore for the business overall. Now, the idea behind the integration with Intersight is to manage and maintain all your infrastructure investments using a SaaS model. So FlashStack customers can deal with firmware management, but also, as we learned, day-to-day device management without investing in infrastructure management to actually maintain those devices. Second, Intersight guarantees that FlashStack customers always have resources and capacity that they need without ever paying for more than what's used. So FlashStack customers can give resources and capacity literally for granted. That's the actual source. And this is possible because FlashStack, third point, is now AI enabled. How? A proactive response or proactive responses perhaps are provided by Pure1 and Intersight together to business needs instantly. So Pure1 and Intersight will recognize the status of each layer. This is why so much of that management overhead is removed from your administrators, freeing them to attend to end users' needs and more innovative activities rather than managing the IT infrastructure, perhaps. So I'll give you an example. Let's picture a situation in which your storage or compute capacity, perhaps, is approaching your threshold, and your DevOps happen to launch a new project. Intersight will, in that case, automatically ensure that sufficient resources are made available from your reserves without impacting other ongoing operations. Now, before concluding, I like to quickly address those of you in the audience that are familiar with UCS already, those who manage UCS already through UCS Manager, perhaps, or UCS Director. I just wanted to say that all capabilities you're familiar with are kept with the Intersight, which, as we heard, is also what manages the X series, so the latest release of UCS, basically. On top, with Intersight, you'll be able to manage and config also storage. That's how orchestrating the entire infrastructure become easy, immediate, one last time, are harmonious, actually. So using one only interface makes the job very easy, and Pure truly makes the difference when we talk about storage. So UCS users, you should try the FlashStack as an immediate next step. That's my immediate advice. I also have a little message to Pure customers. So dear Pure customers, you're used to all the advantages of having Pure in your team, among which best-in-class proactive support. Now, you all know how high our Net Promoter Score shows the best level of customer satisfaction in the industry, best by far. And this high ranking of ours was decreed by those who are responsible for the functioning of the IT infrastructure, those in the teams who put their hands inside the storage, inside the IT infrastructure. So to those professionals, from my experience, that are never really easy to please, those professionals being Pure customers can imagine that the advantage of enjoying a proactive support offered by Pure, not only limited to the storage layer, but on FlashStack to the entire IT infrastructure. Now, since I'm really enjoying addressing the audience directly, I'll conclude in the same way. This is for those of you in the audience who are not yet FlashStack customers. Dear IT administrators, I know that you would easily define headache dealing with the infrastructure management, and I know that because I talk to you every day. And there is a chance for less headache for you. Dear CIOs, CTOs, head of infrastructure, CFOs even in the audience, with Intersight on FlashStack, your IT teams will dedicate time to creativity, to thinking of new ways of making the business more successful, new ways to add value to the business instead of merely managing the machine that permits the business. So truly, with Intersight on FlashStack, the IT department becomes an asset rather than a mere efficiency squad. And efficiency needs no longer manual interaction to be delivered. Efficiency, in fact, is what the FlashStack provides with. And through Intersight, the monitoring and management of that efficiency becomes immediate, automated for a true complete IT infrastructure orchestration, so that your data experience can truly be called modern. And that will be my conclusion, Brian. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Carlo. That was excellent. And it was such a good wrap up. Really, we don't need Andrew to present at this point at all. That was excellent. Andrew, I have to say, though, Andrew, there is one thing we're missing. Eugene and Carlo did a great discussion about the new FlashStack architecture and what that means in terms of a hybrid cloud environment, what it means in terms of the simplicity of management, single pane of glass for all compute, network, and storage layers. But unfortunately, we have entered a new era. And one of the topical issues of our time are these evil data pirates who are invading our data centers and holding our data for ransom. And luckily, I believe FlashStack has an answer for that. So maybe there is a place for you to present here, Andrew. I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you to talk about how we deal with these data pirates.
So there was a thought going through my head of like, I think even if I don't talk on this webinar, I get paid the same today as if I do. And Carlo's wrap up was so good, I almost want to end with that. But then I was like, if I don't talk, I don't get to turn on this fun Zoom filter and let you, for the first time, if you're watching, probably ever see the Zoom, ever actually see the Captain and Pirate eye patch kind of thing. So you were talking about data pirates there, Brian, but cool. So we can have fun with some stuff, but I won't like make you do that the whole time. To your point though, Brian, and I won't be shy about getting started. One thing that's interesting as we look at FlashStack is what are the capabilities that the components provide? We've had some really great discussion about FlashStack overall, and even some of the Cisco components and Intersight, things that go across FlashStack. But we're in a world where data protection has gone from being boring and just got to do it, pay the insurance bill, to it matters in general, but also it matters specifically when it comes to ransomware concepts. So what we wanted to do for this part is actually explore some of the capabilities of the underlying components, both from a Cisco standpoint, from a Pure standpoint. Not be shy. We're not going to pretend, what comes from the Cisco and Pure side, but they all go together. They accrue, that benefit accrues into FlashStack. So let's start off with a little bit of general data protection standpoint. So if you look at FlashArray, okay, so this is the block storage in general within FlashStack. One thing that's fascinating about Pure's evergreen approach is that we don't have to have a discussion as we change data protection methods as it relates to replication and high availability and business continuity, some of the stuff you see here. There's a full set of data replication capabilities built into FlashArray, whether it's synchronous replication, continuous replication, that's an RPO in low seconds, asynchronous replication, snapshots, or offload to other targets. These are capabilities that are all architected into FlashStack. You don't have to pay extra for them. There's not extra hardware needed. So that actually, for me, the way I more think about this is that when if I put my architect hat back on, and we left out some of our introductions, but for those we haven't met, I started on the customer side 7 years, kind of admin to engineer to architect, and try not to forget what real life is like. We have to be thinking in terms of data protection, often in terms of how much data will I lose? How long can I afford for that recovery time to be, RPO and RPO? And those answers don't stay the same for any given data set. Or you have new workloads that come in that have different requirements. Or there's an application that wasn't critical and then it had some downtime and now it's much more critical. And if we have to get new licenses and hardware and major architectural changes, that's a problem. So when Eugene was talking about flexibility and simplicity, this is part of how FlashStack delivers that for you, even as you have changing data protection requirements. But this is some of what we've been doing for a while as Pure in industry. We've thought about disaster recovery, business continuity. The flexibility here is critical, but there's definitely newer problems out there Surprise, surprise. You knew that probably somewhere you're going to see ransomware in a slide here, So hey, we'll do it here. But what I don't want to just do talk about what Pure and Cisco can do. We'll get there in a second. Want to talk about what kind of attacks we're seeing and the attack vector. So let's actually walk through a little bit of anatomy of a ransomware attack. General attackers getting in. I'm not going to harp on this too much because at this point, if you watch the news, this is more a question of when and not a question of if, whether it's compromised credentials, whether it's an email from iTunes that looks like it's from iTunes, but the only thing wrong is the dispute this purchase link for a $50 app. That was a story that I heard from someone in Toronto, a year or two ago when I was presenting on this. Generally, though, when attackers get in, they are not going and encrypting data right away. There's the concept of dwell time or gestation, et cetera. So the average attack length in 2018 was 51 days. In 2019, actually went up to 206 days. 2020, we're seeing it drop down into the 2 to 6 weeks. What's critical is they're not just going and encrypting stuff right away. They're trying to get into as many systems as possible. And then even more recently, we're seeing that's optional, but it's real and a little bit scary. Attackers are very logically going after the means of data protection. That is, the things that would keep you from needing to pay a ransom, they're going to try and break that stuff. What a surprise. So breaking backups, erasing snapshots. And I want to be super careful how I say this. We have seen this in the field as we talk to customers. To be real, this is not me taking pot shots at our competitors or even our own security team. This is a question of, can attackers sometimes compromise admin credentials inside your organization? We're sadly seeing that happen sometimes. And I'm not even impugning you as people watching, but that's what they're going after and sometimes being successful. So then, they're going to ask for ransom. At that point, we're in incident response mode. We have to figure out, how did they first get in back here? What are all the systems they got into? So then I know how to start patching systems, beginning recovery. And often, sadly, what we're hearing from customers is realizing that can take weeks to months. I'm thinking of a Fortune 100 that 6 months later is still recovering from tape because they didn't have a fast, RTO. And the recovery point objective critically does have to go, not necessarily all the way back to the point of infiltration. We can't roll any company, any data set back 50 to 200 days, like we all go out of business if we do that. But we want to go back to very shortly before the point of encryption. Okay, so obviously I set all this up because you're like, Pure has to be able to do something here. It's what I like to call the trifecta sometimes. That before the attack, we can offer capabilities that are very simple to implement and operate. It's critical. If it's not simple on a day-to-day basis and requires day-to-day care and feeding, that last line of defense, data protection, won't be there when you need it. Next, during the attack, immutable plus safe mode, basically knowing that the attackers can't compromise the means of data protection. And then finally, after the attack, we can do a huge amount of work up here. If we haven't actually made the restore process fast enough, this work doesn't count. So it's got to be fast. And this is where I think of a story, a different customer, where when they went to start restoring from a different system, it was Windows progress bar style, kind of counts up and up and up. When it got up to 60 days, they canceled the restore at that point because that's more of an RTO equals no than like, oh, it's a day or week. It's just like, nope, doesn't count anymore. So what do? I'd like to talk about our 2 lines of defense here, even a little bit of 3. First is protecting your primary data. There's nothing faster than taking snapshots that are immutable and always have been immutable since the architecture beginning of Pure on your primary data or your application data without performance impact, without charging for them, that are space saving, that are first-class citizens that be recovered actually just about instantly, sub-second for the metadata structures to change around. So this actually goes back to the core capabilities of Pure. There's a hospital. We've got a blog post on our website. Those able to recover with this. Next line of defense, protecting your backups. Because maybe not everything is on FlashStack or on Pure yet, kind of thing. We recognize that might be the case eventually, So we also partner with many backup providers to be able to go and accelerate a fast recovery tier in their backups. Sometimes we call that rapid restore. You see the number here. We've actually done testing out to a petabyte per day restored, which is crazy. But what about if someone compromises admin credentials, as I mentioned, because that's what attackers are trying to do? This is where we've added a safeguard on the deletion process of data on Pure systems. We call safe mode. So immutable snapshots plus more. Even an admin or attackers can't do the final deletion step. We can force what we call a eradication timer to keep them around longer, even if someone's tried to delete them. We don't charge for this feature. And actually, it can protect any type of data set on FlashArray or FlashBlade There is, of course, pieces there in working with Pure Support. Sometimes we're in a public context, we're careful about how we talk about this, to be real, because attackers are smart and they're watching stuff. But the outcome here, the impact, is that even if someone has compromised the admin credentials on a Pure device, they can't do the final deletion of the data without support being involved and without you knowing. Now, that was a bunch of Pure pieces. I wanted to illustrate some of the capabilities of FlashStack from a Pure standpoint. But there's more to FlashStack than just Pure capabilities, right? There's a whole security portfolio from a Cisco standpoint. And it was really, Brian and I were going back and forth and chatting like, which pieces do we highlight here? There's so much stuff. So it felt right to dial in on Cisco's secure workload. You might know this as Tetration in the past, especially if you go back a little bit. That was the name of the company that Cisco acquired a while back and has continued improving the product. This is now focused around, further up the stack in some ways, around full lifecycle security. So this is where we start to talk about not just about when we're our last line of defense and recovery or disaster recovery and replication, but what about identifying anomalies to see deviations about what's going on, to actually find vulnerabilities and close that down ahead of time. This is a defense in depth conversation. It shouldn't be that you want to be at your last line of defense, the Pure capabilities I talked about every single time you get attacked. You want to have stuff further up from a defense in depth standpoint, like it says, zero trust model. So there's actually dramatic reduction in human intervention to be able to track these things, because that can actually be really hard. The level of human effort to keep everything patched and up to date and tracked. And then not just saying, and this is now tailing a little bit off both Carlo and Eugene, this shouldn't just be an on-prem conversation. This should also be a cloud discussion as well. You don't want to say, I did this approach in the cloud and I got to do this approach on-prem or vice versa. That's a recipe for lots of overhead and not keeping track of stuff when you need it kind of thing. So consistent approach across on-prem and cloud. Now, I realize I've been in general promise mode. We've got deeper demos on this stuff. We'd love to show you more details, but want to give you a little bit of a sense of how when we look at data protection, we look at ransomware protection, there's multiple capabilities. We didn't even hit on all of them within the underlying components of FlashStack that accrue up into FlashStack benefits for you as a customer. I think, Brian, I've been maybe a little bit too much in evil villain monologue mode, so I feel like this is where I turn it back over to you.
Hey, thank you. Nicely done, matey. Now, this is obviously one of the giant issues of our time. And I think, as you mentioned, this is our jobs making the evening news for the first time in a long time, in my career at least. And we're seeing it all the time. Saw a heat map recently that showed ransomware attacks going back about 3 years. And you are absolutely right. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when. And the dollar price tags on these ransoms are going up. A friend of mine works at a gaming company. They were attacked and asked for a $50 million ransom. The company's just not big enough to afford that. So their servers were down for 6 weeks. They laid off half their company. People went without paychecks for 2 months. This stuff is real and it's scary. And one of the things I'd like to touch on to sort of wrap up here is that there was a common theme throughout Eugene's discussion and Carlo's discussion and Andrew's discussion. And that was that at every piece, every component, every layer that we talk about with FlashStack, we're seeing Intersight and the AI management and the software-defined nature offer not only a huge amount of benefit and functionality and capability to the infrastructure, but at the same time, instead of adding more to the workload plate of the administrators, because of Intersight and because of the AI management across the entire stack, and because of the AI nature of some of the tools like Tetration, it really takes actually a whole lot of effort off the shoulders of the administrators, freeing them up to spend more time on innovation and working on competitive aspects for the business. Well, thank you all three for speaking for us today for FlashStack. I'd like to wrap it up with a couple of key points, and then we'll go to some Q&A. So the first thing I think we heard today was this new X series FlashStack design. 100% software defined, 100% AI managed, all from a single pane of glass. Nothing could be easier, both on-prem or across a hybrid cloud environment. We also heard Andrew talk about the issue of our day, which is ransomware and cyber attacks. And there is probably no more secure infrastructure platform right now than FlashStack. And I say that not as hyperbole, but because I know we have gone across and not only invested both at Cisco and Pure in solutions for that, but we have worked with best of breed providers, partners across the industry. And I'm comfortable in saying if there is a solution out there to fight cyber attacks, we have it on the platform. With that, I think we're probably going to go to some Q&A, if that's okay. So let me take a look at what I have seen come across. Looks like the first question is probably for Carlo. And Carlo, maybe we can leave some wrap-up time for the others on the program as well after your question. But that, by the way, was supposed to be funny. But here's the question. It said, now, I'm a FlashStack user already, and I've experienced the simplicity of data mobility across the hybrid cloud environment. But now you're talking about a new software-defined infrastructure. So what is the difference with the new X series FlashStack, really, versus the FlashStack that I'm using today? What's better? It's a pretty open question there.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for the question. And, you know, I appreciate the fact that you noticed how much I was struggling with the 10 minutes, kind of time in general. And but yeah, I mean, thanks for the questions. It's very, very interesting one. And I'll try to be very quick. And let's run an exercise. So let's hopefully see an answer appearing within. So let's perform a separation of concepts within data mobility. So let's imagine an internal and external data mobility, but bear with me. So what do I mean by internal mobility? FlashStack is per se a hybrid cloud already. So FlashStack is ready to host workloads, regardless if those are engineered for physical or a virtual server infrastructure. The first concept of internal data mobility stands within the private cloud that the FlashStack offers. Public cloud arrives as a step forward. The hyperscalers provide merely, in this case, a larger environment, a further place, if you like, where to move data, workloads, applications, all sorts. So data mobility here becomes external. So both of these imaginary kinds of data mobility, internal and external data mobility, between on-premises and the clouds was already offered. They were both already offered by the FlashStack in its original version. The FlashStack as a service opens up to a fully OpEx financial model and onboarding, as Eugene was explaining in the beginning. So for everything that it's FlashStack itself, all advantages stays within the FlashStack as a service. So advantages of Intersight are maintained in both versions. Again, my suggestion is always going towards a full technical presentation. And in regards of the X series, maybe Eugene, do you wanna just explain the actual missing bit in that? I guess it's better for you to take over.
Yeah, absolutely. So the X series now brings the latest platform of CPUs and memory and latest technology. So a lot of customers have been talking about Threadrippers and a lot of the new AMD EPYC processors. So that's something that comes available with the X series, as well as the newer generation Intel processors. But I think the second thing that really changes with X series is this Intersight managed mode that you're alluding to, and which is now, instead of having Fabric interconnects in the future, imagine your X series being able to be managed by Intersight, right? So cloud managed helps you with that data mobility and all the features we've already built in with snapshot to cloud on Pure, and the fact that Intersight is that multi-cloud built solution where you can manage cloud resources as well as on-prem. These are the things that really make this next generation even better. And so it's a continuation of the promise that we made our customers, which is that you'll always have a solution that can scale and continue to meet your needs. And this is that next generation of that, making it even better.
Excellent. Thank you, Eugene, for adding that additional color to it. It's, I like to say the old FlashStack, the original FlashStack, had some wonderful advantages going for it. It was discreetly manageable and discreetly scalable. which meant you didn't have to do a forklift upgrade just if you needed more capacity on the storage. You could add that without impacting computer network. And the same went for the compute side. And then we had the reference architectures, which made implementation incredibly simple and foolproof, and has served a lot of our customers very well and led in part to those NPS scores that Carlo was talking about. The new FlashStack takes that to the next level, however, with the complete software definition of the entire environment. We've had this sort of capability for a while with Pure One and the flash arrays, but now it's extended to the network and the compute side. I started my career at AT&T networking, and I can tell you our network management center had one of those NASA kind of rooms where you had 1 million screens up watching a tool for each individual component in the network. And unfortunately, when I go to data centers today, this is 20 years later, and a lot of that environment is still out there. And now with Intersight and this single pane of glass, we can manage that whole environment from one screen. Finally, living up to this promise of simplicity that the industry has made for quite a while. So we're pretty excited about the new FlashStack. And as always, if you want more information about this, please go to our website that we share with Cisco, www.flashstack.com. I would have put it up on the screen, but I think you guys can remember www.flashstack.com. Thank you very much.
Hey, and Brian, sorry to interrupt. We do have one question that came in on the chat if you want to address that real quick.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you thank you for monitoring it. Does Pure Storage help reduce data migration costs? And if so, can data be transferred from, let us say, Isilon to Pure Storage? That's a wonderful question. I'm going to throw that to Andrew since he didn't get to answer anything in the Q&A session. Andrew, can I put you on the spot for that?
I think it's covered. I think we could bounce it around, but happy to. So I'll say data migrations are always fun, period. Okay, let's just be real about that kind of thing. There are things that we can do both with our partners and professional services team to facilitate and make the migration process easier. I'm going to extend the answer a little bit as well. Once we get past the migration process, there's even stuff in the replication process. If you're replicating the data that can help with, compression and the size of the WAN links, that kind of thing you need. However, if you're talking, let's just be real, says Isilon to Pure Storage, we're probably having a file conversation and potentially a high performance and throughput scale out discussion. Not always, I'm guessing, because I used to have some Isilon certs that have now expired, to be real. But that can actually be a discussion we can have about, we want to dig into the workload that you have there. There's usually a lot of very good fit. I don't want to make a categorical promise because I ought to understand your workload before we go further. But overall answer is yes, we can, and we'd love to dig in with you more.
Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it. I knew you coming from an end user standpoint probably have dealt with some of this firsthand. So appreciate the insights. With that, everybody, I want to thank you for joining us on the FlashStack X series webinar today. Again, FlashStack, www.flashstack.com if you want more information. And as Carlo graciously mentioned, you can always reach out to any of us on email at Pure or at our LinkedIn sites. Thank you very much.